Hi, I'm Herrera,
And I'm Carelle Herrera.
and welcome to Stories of Strength, where we interview people who are strong. Strong because they have been resilient, persistent, and have provided hope for millions of people.
They have been made strong and therefore they also make others stronger, giving hope, dedicating their lives for their passion. But what makes them strong? How are they honed? How do you mold them? How do you train them to be that? So if you're a parent, you might want to know, how can I help my child to be strong in this world?
Today we have with us the co-founder and CEO of Human Nature. She has been an advocate of empowering people and communities and has provided a better way of life for millions of people.
So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anna Meloto-Wilk.
Good to see you today.
Oh, it's so great to see you. And thank you so much for saying yes to our invitation so that people will know about your stories of strength. So I think para hindi sila maghintay further so that they don't have to wait for the entire meet, I just want to ask you the first question. Who's Anna Meloto-Wilk? What is your story? If you can
All right.
talk about it lang in a short span of time.
I know you said 3 minutes. Sabi ko, wow, like
Yeah, yes.
big question for 3 minutes. Okay. Sige. So I'll just give you maybe the condensed version. Well, primarily I am a mother of 6 children.
Wow.
So my eldest is almost 16 and my youngest is 4. I'm also a wife to, my husband, who was also my co-worker in Gawad Kalinga, and then eventually he became my co-founder in Human Nature. So segue to my other role, which is I am actually a co-founder and president of Gandang Kalikasan, which is the company that brings you human nature here in the Philippines. So we are an enterprise that's been around for 13 years this November, and we were founded on the values of being pro-Philippines, pro-poor, pro-environment. So it really came about from, as I mentioned, we were all volunteers for Gawad Kalinga. The third co-founder is actually my sister, and GK is it was a movement, an organization that was trying to address the problem of poverty. So we were very much involved in, transforming slums and communities that were devastated by typhoons. Ang dami natin yan, diba? On a yearly basis to dignified, thriving communities. So we started with housing and then communities, training and working with the communities to think about how they can be more independent and care more through Filipino values, bayanihan, and also compassion, pagdugo, that sort of thing. And then after that phase of our lives of volunteering, we also found ourselves starting a family whilst we were working in that space. And prior to that, my other life was I was in advertising, marketing, communications. So parang nagbangga yung my development work and also my professional corporate life. And my husband Dylan, who was also a volunteer, also came from a startup, a very successful startup in the UK, before he came to volunteer full-time in the Philippines. So it's like the business world and the development world kind of colliding. And our idea was really, how can businesses help in addressing social problems? And can we use the resources of businesses? Because, primarily, the goal of business is to make profit. But the question was, what do you use profit for? Diba? And we were thinking maybe instead of just benefiting the business owners or the stakeholders, businesses who are really successful can make a bigger impact by investing those profits in addressing problems like poverty and environmental degradation and all of that. So that was really the start of Human Nature. And fortunately, our third co-founder was the beauty expert, and that's how we got into the field, to the cosmetics industry. So, that's really in a nutshell our story.
I'm getting goosebumps, because it's your Gawad Kalinga is known, for so many years already.
Yeah.
Human Nature is already like a household name, diba? Everyone knows about your products, the sunflower oils, the elixir, the soaps. And And what maybe you'd have a question, but yes, ikaw
Yes,
na muna.
yes. I have a question. Ang daming accomplishments. For some people doing this Gawad Kalinga, okay na yun eh. Parang you were able to contribute already, right? And then you had also this human nature. Parang it doesn't stop. What makes you go and say, there's more?
Mm-hmm. I guess it happened kasi gawad kaling I was volunteering when I was still young. So I mean, if you
Yeah.
stop when you're young, parang what are you gonna do for the rest of your life, diba? Same with Dylan because he achieved success quite early on. He had sold his business. It went public when he was 25, and then he was like thinking, is this it? Parang do I just travel and parang pursue pleasure for the rest of my life? But I think we're all wired differently, diba? Parang well, kami, we're people of faith, and we honestly believe that there will always be a part of you that will want to live your life in a way that is useful. One of my most favorite quotes, if not my most favorite quote, is from Leo Rosten. He was a survivor of the Holocaust,
Mm.
Yo.
and he said that the purpose of life is not to be happy, but to be useful. Diba? So I guess because we've seen how you can dedicate your life in making things better, there's always going to be something wrong in the world. So we saw that, like the co-founders and I, we saw that from a very young age. Na we didn't want to stop there. But at the same time, life also happens, and you have as an adult, you have responsibilities. So you also have to, have a livelihood. So it was just really a question of can my career, can my vocation be able to also sustain my responsibilities and at the same time have a positive impact on other people. So that and then so yung that sense of wanting to always be useful, and then the second is really curiosity na parang is there something in the world that perhaps can be improved but hasn't been done in a different way. So that's always been sort of like our motivation, I suppose.
Mhm. Beautiful answers. Actually, I was going to lead into, a little bit of what he asked, but you mentioned the word we all have the word wiring a while ago. We're all wired differently. And you've also touched on faith. You have grown up in that kind of environment. Kasi my question is, what propels you? What gives you? What made you who you are? I mean, sorry, but as a mother, you desire for your children to be good children
Mm-hmm.
who would contribute to the world. So maybe, for parents like me or for people out there who are listening, how can we build, create, or have children like you? What's the exposure? What's the environment like growing
What was
up?
the parang
What was the wiring?
nurturing
Yeah.
stage like?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So this is gonna be going way earlier pa, diba? And I always attribute it to the modeling that my parents did. Actually, my mom, I mean, I really attribute our faith to my mom because even before she got married, she really had a personal relationship with the Lord, with God, and it's not just the mass going Sunday attending type of faith. She was always in community with other people who really wanted to grow in their walk with God. And when she married my dad, it was a very strange development because my dad was a man of the world, to say it very mildly. He was into sabong, he was into barkada and all of those things. And even up to now, I keep asking my mom, what made you or what pushed you to marry papa, 'di ba? Na who is so not in the mold that you grew up in. And then wala siyang masagot. Sabi ko, na in love ka lang talaga. But even then, I think God uses all things for the good of his purposes, good and bad. He has a way to transform it, 'di ba?
Mhm.
So I think it was because of my mom's faith that eventually when I turned 2 or 3, my dad finally also gave his life to the Lord. And so I grew up in that environment where faith was really very, very front and center in the lives of my parents. So it became very natural, I guess, for us as children that I would see my mom dedicate even 15-20 minutes na parang if I see her in the corner, it means she can't be disturbed because she is reflecting, she is praying, and then I can make her collect when she's done, ganyan. And then same with my dad, his personality was more extroverted naman, so he was always on mission, he was always going around our neighborhood and asking people if they want to join their men's group or their, you know, their community and all of that. So I saw both, like the need for reflection and also the need for outward service, yung parang sabi nila vertical and horizontal way of living out your faith. So that's one. And then the next one was my parents, especially my dad, was so cowboy and adventurous na he wanted us to really explore the Philippines. We didn't have a lot of money. He was a missionary for like more than like most of his professional life, but we would go on road trips, we would go on Roro when Super Ferry was new, like back in the 90s. We would explore Visayas, Mindanao. I've been to some of the most obscure provinces, off the beaten track kind of places in the Philippines, and that nurtured my love for our people and our country. Also because although I was a city girl and always will be a city girl, parang I really came to love and appreciate that there's so much to explore and to discover even in our own country. And that's something that I want to nurture in my children also, that they're not afraid to go out, to venture, to have that exploration, the spirit of exploration, I suppose, because that gives children confidence, that it takes out the fear. Confidence is something that I really want to nurture in my children apart from faith.
No, how nice, how beautiful. Now, if people would hear this, they might think like, oh, it's such a perfect childhood, right? Or it's such a perfect life. Sheltered in faith, sheltered in an environment that allowed them to explore and be creative. But, growing up, as you've said, also adulting, looking at your life, what were the biggest challenges that you faced? Hurdles, difficulties?
Yeah. Early on, I suppose, because children, especially teenagers, will always want to find their own identity that is separate from their parents.
Mm-mm.
And for some, it can be a smooth transition. For others, it can be pretty rocky. And I think one of my earliest conflicts was when I was having a hard time trying to distinguish who I was apart from my father's daughter, because he was such a prominent figure in our community. And that, I think that was one of my first independent decisions when I decided that instead of working as a missionary, that I wanted to actually explore a different interest, which was advertising, which I discovered in college. And I knew that he was so disappointed because he was expecting that I was going to join him in ministry. And, a lot of people were also expecting that as soon as I graduate, I would go that route. But I think it was my first adult decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, I don't think I would have done any different, and I still stand by that decision, because even though I kind of diverted from a little bit from the path of what I thought I was gonna go into, I think it was the right path eventually, because at a certain point nag-converge din naman siya with ministry and mission and all of those kinds of things. And although my dad especially was disappointed, I think he accepted it because he knew that I was old enough to make those kinds of decisions. And some of my siblings still tease me about it. Oh, naalala niyo yung taon na nagrebelde si ate? Tapos, sabi ko, buti nga, isang taon lang eh. Yung iba, matagal pa.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think, there it wasn't ideal childhood. But at a certain point, I really wanted to kind of break free from the shelter and see if I could spread my wings, if I could actually make it on my own without, the protection of my parents' reputation, and just moving around in the circles that they moved around. And that's something that I also want to do for my kids. And yeah, ngayon ko lang naisip, pero parang that was a pivotal kind of moment in my life.
Mhm. Now, we also know how challenging the pandemic has been. It's really affecting so many people. How is your business? How are you leading people now? How are you helping them out? How do you manage to, say, let's
Survive.
survive, let's survive, or even
Yeah.
thrive during
Right,
time?
right, right.
Maybe you
Yeah.
could share.
Yeah, actually, what RR said, survival was really just the primary goal this past 18 months. We really took a hit, especially because we are in retail, we are in the retail space, and you know that all of the lockdowns, the ECQ, the GCQ, and the flip-flopping and open close of the economy has really wreaked havoc in our business. But I think especially in the first parts of the pandemic when people weren't really exhausted yet, I mean, I credit our teams for just soldiering and parang rallying around the company, because they knew that, they had to do their best to be able to keep the livelihoods, not just of, 600 employees, but our branches and our dealers and all of that. So that gave a lot of people in the company a sense of purpose. Let's do it for everyone, not just for us, diba? So it was very important that we would communicate to them very regularly, encourage them through, assemblies, virtual assemblies, and then also through, we would have small group meetings, and then we established kind of ad hoc committees to, ad hoc committees to receive yung concerns from our teams, more quickly and all of that. So that was the response during the first part of the pandemic. But as the pandemic started to become more protracted, I think the game has kind of changed na now because people are mentally exhausted apart from physically exhausted. Sometimes even when they want to give more in terms of creative ideas, in terms of, being able to contribute to how else can we pivot. Parang 2020 word was pivot. But I think 2021, it's really more of, parang how do we endure, diba? Because sometimes even when you squeeze people, you're it's like squeezing a rock already because talagang there's nothing to give. So the game, the war is really how to keep renewing and rejuvenating and encouraging people, because the adrenaline has kind of puttered out, and parang how do we continue to re-energize ourselves. I was listening to this talk just a few days ago from a military. He was a brigadier general in the Singaporean army. Sabi niya, we're in a protracted war. So how do you encourage your soldiers when you're in a protracted war? Some wars last, 3 years. Some World War II lasted 6-7 years. So how do we keep going in that kind of environment? So for me, I think it's really looking long term and finding a reason to keep going, because your eyes are you have this hope. And I always sign my letters with resolute hope. It means that hope sometimes is not just a feeling, or it's not just a soft thing that, oh, I hope you win, or I hope you get better. But it's really a firm belief that one day you will see good things. That same brigadier general also said very pragmatically, the worst is not yet over, but the best is yet to come. So I guess that kind of summarizes that what I've also been holding on to, that we need to have resolute hope. It's a decision to be hopeful. You have to fight for to stay encouraged and to always find things every single day to make you feel that you can still keep going.
It's good that you mentioned that, no, na parang it's very important to keep that in mind for you to keep going, right? But I'm sure there are moments when you feel like I'm tired, you know. It's I have to take care of people, I have to motivate them, I have to empower them,
Plus
but
6 children.
plus 6 children. But how about me?